In this video, let's talk about the planning of financial and personal sustainability for your events.
This video is brought to you by Appy Pie Academy.
Sustainability means that it's a business, an event series that's financially viable for you to put on. Otherwise, you're just not going to be able to do it anymore. And it really should be fun for you to do and shouldn't be a drag. It's a heavily customer-facing business. Your customers will immediately see if your passion isn't there. And for financial viability, and later in this video, we're going to talk about a little bit more serious financials, nothing too crazy, but we'll get into financials. And in other parts of the course, I also talk about LTV, improving lifetime customer value. We'll talk about that, and I talk about it elsewhere in the course. But this is something you have to do over time for your events to make them financially viable. In the beginning, that's not really the goal. In the beginning, the goal is growth and at least some reasonable stability in terms of event quality, getting people to engage. But mid and long term, you do have to start to focus on lifetime customer value and increasing that, as well as getting more attendees. And while you're doing this all, the events can become a drag. So the planning for your events, look at it long term. In the beginning, of course, it's fun, it's new. But a year from now, if you do it, 2 years from now, if you do it, that's really where the event series is going to turn into something amazing and fantastic. What you have to do is have kind of the foresight to make sure, is this not going to become too much of a chore? Do you have real passion for this? And what might also happen is you might not exactly and perfectly hit on the ideal targeted topics for your event, which attract the spending demographics to your events. So you'll have to play around with that so that eventually you navigate towards the kind of audience that comes to your events that can freely spend. And the real art of this and the real trick of this is twofold. One is you have to pre-plan as much as possible so that after you launch your events, you don't have to correct course as much. Of course, there will be some mistakes you'll make. There's never a perfectly planned business. You'll have to make some adjustments, but the goal is to have to make minimal adjustments and make sure that it's financially viable, sustainable, you can keep the events going, and it's going to be fun for you. That's important. And when I talk about sustainability for your events, a part of me wants to talk about dollars and cents and financials, and I know you might want to hear that. And I hate to be cheesy, but you will have to interact with your attendees. You will have to inspire them to keep attending. You are the leader of this event. You are the face of it with most events. And your passion has to be that contagious kind of passion that ignites their passion. You really have to lead on that front. And if you do, everything will be easier. It will be easier to get repeat attendance. It will be easier to upsell things. It will be easier to just make people have more fun in the moment, more enjoyment. It will feed off to attendees and their interaction with other attendees, and it will just give your events a better energy if your passion is there. So precisely because this is a highly customer-facing business, you really got to bring the passion. It's hard to fake long term. If you're not excited, your customers will not be. So now let's talk a little bit about the financial viability, because at the end of the day, this is important. For a new business, no matter what the business is, it's really difficult to project financials. Usually, financials are predicted for existing businesses based on previous months and quarters of growth. And based on those, existing businesses more accurately project future revenue and future profits. For a new business, if this is a new event series, this is not the case. It's largely a guess. It's very faulty. You have a high margin of error. And you have to come into it knowing that and realizing that usually what's going to happen is after you launch, even though you pre-plan as much as possible, you'll have to evolve how you maximize revenue. You'll have to adjust things from one event to another event to another. You'll have to make little adjustments to make sure that more people attend and they spend more money in total. That's going to be an ongoing thing. So maximizing the LTV it's an ongoing thing, but you can pre-plan a little bit. in financials, there is a common document. It's called the cash flow statement. I'm not going to overkill with this statement. I'm not even going to make you write it. What it really is, it's an over glamorized list. There's two lists there. The expenses, which is cash flow out. So the list of expenses is not the question most of the time. Most of the time, the real questions are, the unknowns are cash flows in. Can you generate revenue? Can you generate growth? That's the real question, because you can have 1 million people attend your events. You can have 3 people attend your events. When you haven't started, you don't know. So much depends on you. So let's talk through a somewhat reasonable revenue calculation for a new event. Let's say you have 20 attendees per event, and you are putting on a weekly event, which more or less equates to 4 events. That gives you 80 attendees a month. And if you charge them, let's say $20 a ticket, that equates to $1,600 a month, which at least in the United States, it's not a sustainable business, but it begins to be a viable side business. It's a pretty good side business. Is it sustainable as a side business? Sure, it's pretty nice, but your goal isn't that. Your goal is to grow. So let's say the same event at 100 attendees. Let's say you grew that 20 attendees per event and you grew it to 100 attendees per event at the same $20 ticket price. That's $8,000 a month. Now that's almost a 6-figure annual salary. And at that rate, it's way over 6 figures in reality, because guess what? You're going to be upselling people. If you upsell, let's say, consulting services or coaching services, out of the 400 people a month that are going to come to your events, that you're going to be able to shake their hands, form some sort of relationship with, what's going to happen is some of them you'll be able to upsell coaching programs. So in addition to the $8,000 a month, maybe you'll upsell 1 or 2 clients a month for like a $5,000 program, or maybe you'll get like a few, let's say you'll get 10 clients a month to a coaching program. That's $1,000 a month. That's an extra $10,000 a month. So I don't know how much you'll be able to upsell. Again, this is a total guess, but you see how as you grow your event and as you grow your monetization, it begins to snowball and begins to be extremely financially viable, especially if it's a one-person business or a one-person business and a few hired freelancers who are not a big expense. So the real money gets made long-term after attendee growth. And guess what? Once you get the formula right for these events, you can have multiple concurrent events ongoing, and you can hire people to put on the events and manage them for you. So you can just sit at home and just work on the marketing and managing the managers who are running the actual events. And you can do this in multiple cities. You can end up from something very tiny, side hustle type of a business with a really, really, really lucrative long-term business that's sustainable, that's putting on multiple large events every week in different places.